And away we go. Welcome, Best Premises. It's Jonathan Hoenig with you with the Ayn Rand Center and the Daily Objective. A real interesting show, I think, for you today. Of course, our global conversation occurs not just in the US or in the UK, but across the world. Objectivism is a philosophy for living on Earth. That's what we're discussing as students of Objectivism. Monday, I know what you're saying, Monday through Friday. Diana, that would be enough. My God, it's Monday, including Sunday, with so many programs brought to you by the Ayn Rand Center UK, including the Daily Objective. In this program. So it's great to see the super chatters, the conversationalists, the posse, the philosophy posse, as we say, already getting the conversation going. Now, it's an interesting topic today, for me at least. I live not in jolly old England, but in America, in Chicago, where this story, which has kind of captivated people from politics and people from celebrities, certainly on both sides of the aisle, and that is the Jussie Smollett tale. So we're going to talk a bit about that. But get into it in this way. First of all, always deferring to your generous contribution on the super chat, but getting into it this way. Let me ask you, our audience, a question. Do you lie? Do you ever lie? Do you ever tell a lie? Well, of course, you probably do. Some interesting research out a couple of years ago that said 60% of people lie once during a 10-minute conversation, and they tell an average of 2 to 3 lies. So when you think about it, this program is about 30 minutes a day. So, I mean, you're looking at least 6 lies per host per show, at least according to statistics. But, hopefully we've learned as objectivists and as people who love reason and people who want to succeed that that's not a real good way to succeed. That's not a real good way to go through life. And so much of it you go back and look at and examine, and people think they know Ayn Rand. I challenge them to if they've read and understood some of what we're going to get into today. Rand talks about in the Comprachicos that self-esteem is reliance on one's power to think. It cannot be replaced by one's power to deceive. The self-confidence of a scientist and the self-confidence of a con man are not interchangeable states. They do not come from the same psychological universe. And here for me is the money shot. The success of a man who deals with reality augments his self-confidence. The success of a con man augments his panic. And that's what I think of when I think of and imagine, and we'll get into the specifics, but when I look at the whole Jussie Smollett case, when I look at Jussie Smollett as a man, to the extent I know him as a man, I'm able to observe him, is that I feel a tremendous sense of sadness for him. I think it's a morality tale for us as objectivists about the importance of ideas and the danger of trying to fake reality. And it's a kind of, it plays out over and over and over again in front of us, time and time again in real time. You need to go back to kind of historical examples. And, this is my words now, this is my estimation, is that lying and deceiving are not in your best interests. This is not Rand here now. This is Hoenig. Lying, deceiving, it doesn't work. It's not in your best interest. And in fact, Dr. Brooke, who has talked about this all the time, Dr. Jerome Brooke has said, he did a show years ago about why being honest is selfish. Honesty is selfish in life and certainly in interpersonal activities. Because when you try to fake, we'll get into it, but when you fake reality is when you always get into problems. And Rand talks about this. She says, one must never attempt to fake reality in any manner. Which is the virtue of honesty. That's from the virtue of selfishness, which is really one of probably my favorite nonfiction obviously for understandable reasons. So all of this, the idea of lying, and it's on my brain in relation to, wait for it, Empire. Now, look, I don't watch a lot of TV. The only TV I watch tends to be barbecue cooking competitions. So I can't say I even knew WTF Empire was before this. I know shows like Empire are out there. There's a lot of shows. And certainly I'd never heard of this man who was on Empire, Jussie Smollett. That's Jussie pre-trial. He looks a little bit younger, a little bit more full of, piss and vinegar than he does right now. This is Jussie now. He's got to get the cross on, because and we're going to talk about that, at least my estimation. It's a big part of, again, I might be psychologizing here, the psychology of all this is altruism, I think, is a big part of what all this terrible spectacle has been about. It's also about lying and evasion as well. And we're always going to welcome your contributions. Thank you, Mary Aline. Thank you, Allison. Allison says, I don't feel sad for him. He potentially hurt people who are victims of hate for just being who they are. Doing this did nothing but hurt real victims. All right, I appreciate that. We're gonna get into that as well. So thank you for that. Here is Jussie with the cross. And Allison, no one cares more about love, as you'll learn, than Jussie. Truth, take it or leave it. Love, Jussie's got the market cord. So let's take you back. I don't have to relive the whole thing, but this goes back several years now. And it started, you might remember, not with the MAGA guys jumping him. And, I still am on the hunt for the real assailants. But it started with this basically fake email or fake mail threat he said to himself. January of 2019, he sent himself, or someone sent him, wink, wink, a letter with threatening language laced with a powdery substance investigators believed was likely crushed up Tylenol. So let's use a little Occam's razor for a moment here and assume that was probably Jussie as well. So, he started this. He started, in my estimation, this belief in wanting to evade reality. And it was just going to be a little something, right? It was just going to be a little, I don't want to take you back to the political wins in 2019, but I believe there was a lot of currency to be had for certainly portraying yourself as a victim in relation to MAGA, in relation to Trump and the politics of the day. So for Jussie, it started with just little evasion. And quoting now one of my favorite movies, certainly has nothing to do with objectivism, but as Bud Fox says to himself on Wall Street, in the movie Wall Street, life comes down to a few moments. This is one of them. And I believe for Jussie, this came down to, and Marilyn, I'm going to get to your question. Marilyn says, do you think what he did is any way comparable to a child misbehaving to get attention, maybe on a much larger scale? I actually think there's more psychology to that. Thank you for the than just a child, although he's certainly childlike. But he made a decision. This is what Bud Fox says. He made this fundamental decision. Life comes down to a few moments. This is one of them, and he made the wrong moral choice. This wasn't an issue on a concrete, because he chose to evade. And Rand, I believe, I'm quoting out of kind of knowledge here, but she talks about it's a choice. It's a willingness to deceive, and this is certainly Jonathan now, not Rand, Miss Rand. It ruins you. It can't help but ruin you. And Jussie's the best example. On the 29th, now a couple of days later, this is a couple of years ago now, so the powder didn't get much attention. I believe he wanted attention. He wanted sympathy. Didn't get much attention. So then he reported this attack. Happened at 2 a.m. Two men jumped him. They put a rope around his neck. They poured a chemical stem. This was the accusation. And this is my belief now, that he wanted something. He thought he was going to be able to get some sympathy, maybe some attention, some better parts on Empire, a little more cred in this world of like being a victim, if he had been a victim himself. And Rand warns against this. Honesty is the recognition of the fact that the unreal is unreal and can have no value. And here it is, again, my emphasis: neither love nor fame nor cash is of value if obtained by fraud. So he deceived himself, in my estimation, from the get-go. He said, I'm going to try to get something through deceit, through evasion. And well, how's that working out for you, Jussie? January, the family and Jussie is very huffy because, quote, we want to be clear, this was a racial and homophobic hate crime, the family writes in January of 2019, a few weeks after now. Our beloved son and brother was the victim of a violent, unprovoked attack. And this is continuing now, Rand's quote: an attempt to gain a value by deceiving the mind of others is an act of raising your victims to a position higher than reality. You become a pawn of their blindness, a slave of their non-thinking and their evasions. Their intelligence, their rationality, their perceptiveness becomes the enemies that you have to dread and flee. So this is my analysis here now. Jussie thought he was going to pull one over on us. And what he's done is his victims now, he is a slave to us because he has to perpetuate this evasion. He has to get up and live with this. I mean, this is why I feel terrible for him. Can you imagine having to live like this every day, clinging to unreality? And this is what he did. I mean, Rand, of course, didn't know Jussie. My sense is she might have I know she'd have a better evaluation, a more astute than I, but I think she probably have. I mean, I'd love to hear her analysis, but I feel like in many ways, here she's saying it. She warned against this idea of, if you're going to try to gain something by deceiving others, you're becoming their slave. And this is it. And Jussie clung to it. And he clung to it, I think, in a really interesting, this is my analysis now, again, tribal way. February 1st, Mr. Smollett releases his first public statement. Let me start by saying I'm okay. My body is strong, but my soul is stronger. I mean, he's already got the movie of the week playing in his mind. Who's going to play me? Oh, maybe I'll play me. Quote now, the outpouring of love and support from my village has meant more to me than I'll ever be able to truly put into words. That teed me off a little bit now. It's, what he's interested in here is not, I guess, justice for him, justice for Jussie. He wants to acknowledge the support from his village. And altruism just rung through this entire spectacle with me. And this is me applying Miss Rand here, but again, quoting her, quote, "It is obvious why the morality of altruism is a tribal phenomenon. Prehistorical men were physically unable to survive without clinging to a tribe for leadership and protection against other tribes." So it just seems like there's something about him that he needs to be seen as part of this tribe, important in this tribe. He's acknowledging the tribe, and I don't know what it is. I don't know. I don't think it's racial. I don't know what it is. He kind of speaks a lot in this collectivist language, but for him, acknowledging not the police who maybe were working hard to get an assailant, or I don't know, but acknowledging the support of his tribe, the love of his tribe. I think for anyone who's got a little litmus test in his or her mind, the more altruistic, the more suspicious, I'd say. Anyway, we'll run through the timeline, and you know how it goes. Dr. Brooke, I remember, talked about with Breaking Bad that for him, Breaking Bad, I'm paraphrasing now, the show ended when basically whatever his name is kind of started cooking the meth, because you knew it was going to be downhill from then. And that's my, for Jussie, as soon as he made that fundamental choice to evade reality, you knew it was going to be downhill. But I have to say, on some level, it's kind of like watching a bit of a car wreck, in the sense that this is what happens when you evade reality. It could happen sooner or later, but it's always going to happen. February 2nd, Smollett makes his first appearance on stage. Quote, "Regardless of what anyone will say, I will only stand for love," tearing up before the beginning of his set. And if you look at his still active Twitter, now, I don't know, I'm not suggesting this, but what do they call it in the Japanese tradition where you kill yourself when you've really made an ass of yourself? I'm not suggesting that for Jussie. I'm just saying he goes the other way. He's kind of stands on it, quoting now, "I'm simply here to save the world. Nothing is more important than love." Just that it's like his first line is, "I am simply here to save the world." It is altruism. His whole shtick is altruism. He's a victim. He's here all about love. He's here to save the world. It's the intersection between altruism and collectivism. It just reeks with Jussie. And I'd love your perspective on the super chat as well, AKA. February 2nd, he talks to Robin Roberts on Good Morning America. He said he was heartbroken when he found out that people, oh my God, questioned the details of his story. For me, the main thing was the idea that I somehow switched up my story, and somehow maybe I added a little trinket, of the MAGA thing, Smollett said. I didn't need to add anything like that. They called me a effer. They called me a enner. There's no way you cut it. I don't need some MAGA hat as the cherry on top of some racist Sunday. And as usual, there's something about Ayn Rand said that made me think of Rand, again, quoting now, and I don't know exactly the context. Maybe somebody on the super chat could remind me of. Obviously, this is from one of Miss Rand's fictions. Quote now, "She had learned in the slums of her childhood that honest people were never touchy about the matter of being trusted. But from the get-go, is, oh my God, he's so, so touchy about being trusted. So, as usual, Miss Rand, it's like a wonderful quote to kind of analyze things that were happening in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and whatever decade we're currently in. February 14th, Jussie. It feels like if I said that I'd been Muslim or a Mexican or someone Black, I feel like the doubters would have been supported me much more, a lot more. Smollett tells Robin Roberts. Again, I just go back to everything with him. This wasn't even like if you were trying to if he was faking a crime, at least he would play it for the idea that, all right, well, let's try to solve the crime. But for him, I believe this was always about an altruistic, collectivist, I don't know, what do they call, like masturbation? I don't know, virtue signaling. I mean, for him, it was always about that. And I think, again, Rand said, again, quoting, if you believe you have no mind and no moral character, you cannot have the confidence to make choices. So the only thing for you to do is to join an unchosen group. This, I think, is probably Jussie. This is my analysis. The group to which you were born, the group to which you were predestined to belong by the sovereign, omnipotent, omniscient power of your body chemistry. This, of course, is racism, but if your group is small enough, it will not be called racism, it will be called ethnicity. And in fact, if you look at Jussie's testimony, a lot of what his introduction was talking about his homosexuality, his race, his tribe, if you will. So his tribe it's all part of his whole self-concept. It's another reason why I feel sorry for him. I think, again, this is my analysis here, as Ms. Rand said, he doesn't have any sense of himself at all. He's just he's a second-hander in the worst sense. February 16th, obviously now, as they say, tick, 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 the truth is coming out. The two brothers have found out, oh yeah, in fact, Jussie gave us a couple of bucks, and his lawyers are, oh my God, they're aghast. As a victim of a hate crime. And Allison, this is exactly what you're saying. Allison is saying, look, he faked a hate crime. He potentially hurt people who are victims of hate. He did it. And because he was claiming to be one as a victim of a hate crime who cooperated with the police, Jussie is angered and devastated. Now, of course, but you can't evade reality. You can't evade it. It's gonna get out. It's always gonna get out. That's why, in a weird way, the QAnon people with the conspiracy theories are so fascinating. It's like they actually think that somehow JFK, or I guess the son, is still out there just living on a ranch somewhere. I don't know. But it's always a act of self-annihilation. And Jussie, this is Jussie's to a T, again, quoting Miss Rand. Non-thinking is an act of annihilation, a wish to negate existence, an attempt to wipe out reality, but existence exists. Reality is not to be wiped out. It will merely wipe out the wiper. And that is what happened. Jussie, I guess, as I said, for me, it's like basically barbecue pit masters or nothing else, but he was a young star. And of course, he got dropped from the show immediately. I can't imagine anyone really wanting to work with this guy again. Quote, fellow actors were betrayed by Smollett's alleged staging of a hate crime. Surprise, surprise. And it just got worse and worse. It was interesting in May, again, quoting now, and I don't want to go too much on him. We don't have to I'm not relitigating. We're just kind of looking at it through this idea of, boy, you make a bad choice when you evade reality. I mean, Jussie said they put a noose around his neck. He put a noose around his neck. He decided to evade reality. So he did it, not anyone else. In May, he was given the chance to settle. This is interesting. You might not know this in the UK. I don't know what happens in the UK. Razi, is it just if you have a duel? Is there actually a justice system? I'm not sure. Here in the US, in fact, prosecutors, they go back and forth. They say, look, let's settle this. I'm joking, of course, to our UK audience. They don't have a duel. They have a drink off, right? Basically. Anyway, here in the US, they wanted to give him a deal. They said, look, we can make this go away, probably do a little community service. Maybe he'd have to pay a few bucks. He was given a get out of jail free card. And he passed. I think that is, to me, probably what's most amazing, is that he was so committed to evading reality. He was so committed to this evasion that even when given an opportunity to basically get out with no real long-term consequences, I can't really understand it. He was committed to, he committed to it. And look what happened. So obviously the footage came out, reality came out. As I said, this is the process of Miss Rand talked about wiping out the wiper, and proof came out. You know, Dr. Peikoff, you should definitely, we always talk about Miss Rand and her work. Dr. Peikoff has, I mean, I know it from a lot of the audio courses, audio course after audio course about epistemology, about proof, about all these elements of understanding and comprehension and logic. So avail yourself to those. And he says, like, proof in the full sense is the process of deriving a conclusion step by step from the evidence of the senses, each step being taken in accordance with the laws of logic. And certainly as evidence came out, more and more perceptual evidence, you had people's testimonies, you had camera footage, you had other types of motion sectors when it comes to cell phones, etc. And ultimately, we know what happened to Jussie is that, you know, he was found rightfully lying over staging this attack. And, you know, what started out as just a tiny little lie, just to kind of make himself look cooler in his tribe. You know, I mean, they say he wasted $130,000 worth of police resources. I think that is unbelievably low. I mean, I think that's shocking when you think about it. I mean, these law enforcement, I don't begrudge them. These gentlemen and women don't make 45 or 50K a year. They make a couple hundred, and you've got hundreds of them on this case for years now. Miss Rand, or this isn't Miss Rand, but this is Don, who's part of our channel here and part of the Ayn Rand Center UK. He's a great voice in objectivism, and he's super wise in so many ways. Don said this a couple years ago. Despite the widespread belief that we get ahead through dishonesty, long-term success in life and in business requires an unbending commitment to reality. When you engage in dishonesty, you make reality your enemy. And that is exactly what Jussie did. He all of a sudden turned reality into his enemy for no reason. And now the last 3 years have been spent trying to fight reality, convince everyone that A is not A. And that's why I say I feel sorry for him. It's painful to watch. So here's my 2 cents for what it's worth. See, I try not to waste your time here. I mean, Rucka, he likes to start with that 15-minute intro. I'm from the get right to it category here. So I feel sorry for Jussie. Whether or not he gets jail time or not, he's already in jail. He's probably in a worse jail. I mean, can you imagine, like, I mean, think again, he was just going to evade, he was probably just going to try to get a better, I don't know, maybe a better write-up in some magazine or a little bit better cred on a show about, oh man, hey, yeah, we know you, this. So he wanted to be a second-hander. We didn't even talk about that, but it was all about second-handedness for him. He wanted to look like a victim. And it was just going to be a little compartmentalized bit of evasion, but it's like, it's poison. It's a little bit of poison. And it, as it often does, it metastasizes and grows. And as Ms. Rand said, it has wiped away the wiper. Can you imagine the self-delusion? My sense is the substance abuse needed for him in whatever it is to get up every day. And even if that substance is faith, which now he's wearing the cross now. So maybe it's all about God, that same type of poison. I mean, I cannot imagine having to kind of live with that reality every day and try to, what kind of joy can you get out of any element of life, knowing that you're living such an amazing lie? People think the liar gains a victory over his victim. What I've learned, that a lie is an act of self-abnegation because one surrenders one's reality to the person to whom one lies, making that person one's master. Condemning oneself from then on to faking the sort of reality that person's view requires to be fake. The man who lies to the world is the world's slave from then on. There are no white lies. There's only the blackest of destruction, and a white lie is the blackest of them all. There's the title of our show today, This Little White Lie, the blackest of them all, certainly for Jussie. Now, they say he's not going to do any real time, according to the New York Post. I think he'd actually probably prefer life in jail. This is another Hoenig contrary take, but there is some evidence to this. You know, you might not remember this, some of you are younger, but there was a huge fraud in America. I don't know, was it 15 years ago now? I guess globally, not in America, but Bernie Madoff, the biggest Ponzi schemer in history. He stole basically $60 billion. He could have bought anything he wanted. He had an unlimited bank account. he was never happier than when he was in prison. This is the headline from 2011. He's since passed away, he's deceased. He was never happier than when he finally got to prison. And that's my sense with Jussie, is that he is probably only going to be relieved once he gets to prison, because there are no white lies and you can't fake reality. Now, for more on this topic, we've got a whole library of content here at the Ayn Rand Center UK. I'll do a little self promotion here. I did a not dissimilar program called "There Are No White Lies" Holden Caulfield a couple of months ago now, because the woman who basically scored the last exclusive interview with J.D. Salinger did it by lying to him. She felt bad about it all those years. She was haunted by it. She never monetized it. And, again, that, and she scored it by lying to Salinger. So it's not good policy. And if you need a better analysis than that, open your People magazine and turn to the section on Jussie Smollett, because that is, as they say, philosophy in action. Thank you for being part of what we do every day, every week. Allison says, I don't feel sad for him. He potentially hurt people. Yeah, I mean, look, he's a unbelievable scumbag. I guess the solace you can take is knowing that he doesn't sleep at night. I don't think he has a still moment. Think about what Miss Rand says. I mean, panic is his norm. He lives his life in panic. That sucks. I mean, that's a living hell. And I don't know, even if you've got a great apartment or a lot of money, that is a terrible way to live. And think about Madoff. Madoff was only happy once he went to jail. So this is going to haunt Jussie in, I think, a very appropriate way for the rest of his life. And it's a great lesson for all of us not to evade reality. Thank you, Marilyn, and thank you all. We're here Monday through Sunday. I don't know. Do we take Shabbat off? I don't know if that's something we do here at the Ayn Rand Center UK. I'm sure there's some programming. What there is a library of programming, all available for you, because we're not building answers on objectivism. We're building a community of objectivism, students of objectivism, learning about objectivism. You'll see some of my collection on the walls. I've been interested in this since I've been a pretty young man. Let's see, I'm 29 now. So let's just say from the late 90s on, and I'm still a student, learning, enjoying, benefiting from some of these great ideas, and benefiting with you, our audience, our philosophy posse. So take this opportunity. We are not a non-for-profit. We are a for-profit. Let me promise you, at least at this point, the profits are pretty slim. I don't know if they have, cup of noodles in the UK. In the US, we have cup of noodles, which is kind of a little instant ramen. I know our president and CEO, Razi, is still existing primarily on a diet of cup of noodles. So anything you can do to help move him off of that and move us up into bigger events, better events. What you do that by supporting us in the super chats, and you do us that by becoming a regular subscriber on our website as well. So we will see you next week. Madoff, Marilyn points out that Madoff was relieved, not happy. I think there's a good distinction. He was relieved. I mean, he certainly wasn't happy any time before then. I mean, I think I didn't prepare too much on it, but I do think he said he was able to find some values in jail. He was able to tutor people, and so he actually had a life that was, for a few months there, years, rooted in reality. And he was, I believe, happier as a living in jail than he was living in the most expensive, exclusive penthouses, because all of that were values obtained by fraud. So look, don't read Breitbart, don't read Drudge, go read Miss Rand and Dr. Peikoff. They said it all before, and as usual, we'll be going back and referencing their wisdom time and time again, learning from each other as well. So thank you again. We will see you next time. We're not going to have what is it called? The chat thing. We're not going to do that today because we've got so much else coming up on the channel, including Seth. Seth has been doing the Integrating Investor, which has been, to me, one of the more interesting, I mean, it's all interesting, but a real fascinating application of objectivist ideas to, to the world of investing, to the world of money management and trading. Seth has had some really fascinating heavy hitters from the investment world, people who aren't necessarily objectivists. So check out his not only final show today, but his library as well. So we'll see you Not this time for Clubhouse. Thank you, Anne and Christopher and Rob and Allison. Thank you all for your support. I see a lot of regular contributors there. We really need that in the new year. However, we're going to be going back to doing live events, and none of us, for the record, are paid to go anywhere by when we go do live events in the UK. We do it because, first of all, I like to go and get it shown a good time in the UK by Rozzy, but we want to go out. We want to meet you. We want to build our community. You've got Mark Pellegrino, who's a legitimate movie star. You've got Rucka Ali. You've got Nikos. I mean, these are kind of fascinating, accomplished people, all in their own context, going out, making it a point to meet you, continue this conversation. Thank you so much, Jessica Bisbee. Really generous support. I absolutely appreciate that. I know Rozzy does, Dylan, everyone who's doing this, and the whole posse, Nikos. I mean, we are students of objectivism. We're learning together. So all of that helps, as they say, keep the lights on and keep them growing. I mean, think about even in the first couple of years of what we've done with the Ayn Rand Center UK, what Rozzy has done. We've had tremendous live events, huge turnouts, and now as COVID fades and reality reasserts itself, we're going to be at the forefront with you. See you next week and see you next time. Be well.